Health, Aging, and LA River, and I call this meeting to order. Colleagues, if there are no public comment cards on items 1, 4, 6, and 7, which I don't believe there are, Maria?
No.
Okay, then I'd like to take them on consent, but we have an attachment in relation to item 1.
Yes,
You could read that.
correct.
Thank you.
Attachment number 2, which is entitled the Employment Plan, which you're recommending, the recommendation is that the County Council, which the Mayor's approval adopt. The second paragraph of the background section has their incorrect project description. The correct description should read, proposed project will consist of the renovation of the existing parking lot, including landscaping and lighting improvements. And that would be consistent with the Board of Recreation and Parks approval on January 7th.
Terrific. That is for the record. Thank you, Ms. Brimsey. So again, colleagues, items 1, 4, 6, and 7 with the attachment that Ms. Brimsey just read. If there are no objections, we can move those forward on consent. And let's now go to item 2. And Ms. Galvin, I understand.
Item number 2 is an LA for Kids Steering Committee report relative to proposed amendments to Proposition K grant agreement numbers C119014 and C119025 to modify the scope of work for agreement C119014 and extend the deadline for completion of design and construction of both agreements for the outdoor half basketball court and outdoor half basketball court lighting projects.
Thank you. And I understand there's an amendment to this item, and Neil Drucker.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right here.
Sorry.
I'm not seeing today.
Too close. I know. That's tough on a Monday.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. Neil Drucker, Bureau of Engineering. As was stated, we do have a recommended amendment to the report, and that is we would like to add the following recommendation as recommendation number 3 to the report, which would be the amendment to each of the Proposition K grant agreements referenced in recommendation number 1 and recommendation number 2 shall contain a provision that requires Pico Union Housing Corporation to establish a bank escrow account prior to start of construction into which Pico Union Housing Corporation shall have deposited funds equal to 50% of the total amount of the construction contract for both projects. The funds in this escrow account are to be distributed and used by Pico Union Housing Corporation solely to front fund each of the 2 projects in order to ensure that the projects are fully funded and are completed and open to the public as required by each of the grant agreements. And just so the committee knows, Pico Union is fully aware of this. We spoke to them and they agreed with this in advance.
Wonderful. I'd like to call my colleague, Mr. Cedillo, whose district this is in. Sure. So we'll hold that, and we'll come back to it. There's no public comment on that. So let's hold that and revisit item 2, and let's now go to item 3.
Item number 3 is the City Attorney report and ordinance in response to motion Vaughn and O'Farrell relative to amending Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 6344 to establish the hours during which beach parks under the control, operation, or management of the Board of Recreation and Park Commissioners will be open and closed to the public.
Thank you. And we are graced by our colleague Mike Bonin this afternoon, who's going to address this issue.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Mr. Cedillo, I like the way you dressed today.
I was just going to tell you I'm homage to Mike Bonner.
Very good. So, colleagues, the item before you today on its face is about a curfew. Really, though, at its foundation, it's about jurisdiction and who has control over the park that we know as Venice Beach. A few years ago, before I took office and before Mr. Fewer took office, the city instituted a curfew at Venice Beach. They did so determining that Venice Beach is a city recreation and parks facility, all of which shut down at night. I'm not wild about curfews personally. I don't particularly like them, and I'm not really philosophically very supportive of them, but I'm very reluctant to repeal it as long as LAPD is telling us it is a useful tool to deal with significant public safety problems down there. That's almost beside the point, though. The question is, do we have the right to institute a curfew? It's not whether or not the curfew should be in effect right now. That's a separate matter. This is a question of whether or not we have the right to institute a curfew in one of our parks. Venice Beach is both a city recreation and parks facility, governed by the Department of Recreation and Parks, and it falls within the coastal zone, which is protected public access according to the Coastal Act to protect borders of the state of California, and therefore under the jurisdiction of the Coastal Commission. It's sort of a classic jurisdictional dispute between the city and the county, and I have good news to report on that, as the city attorney and Coastal Commission have been talking and trying to find some middle way that will allow us to preserve our sort of police rights over our facilities and honor their mandate to protect coastal access. So city attorney and coastal are working very closely together. Glad to report that, and want to make sure they're able to continue to do so, and then they'll come back with a resolution for us as a body.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to invite Valerie Flores up to expand a little bit about the draft ordinance and give us an update on where this is.
Thank you. I don't have too much more to report on. Senior Assistant City Attorney Valerie Flores, the council member, gave a very good status update, but I do want to confirm that we are in confidential settlement communications with the Coastal Commission to try to work out protocols that will be acceptable both to the city and that includes LAP, REC, parks, council offices, constituents, and the Coastal Commission. We did transmit an ordinance to get the ball rolling. We may, after we finish our discussions with the Coastal Commission, send an amended ordinance. It depends on the way those negotiations play out. And we would ask that you continue this matter to allow us some additional time to continue to work with the Coastal Commission and then come back.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for Ms. Flores? We do have public comment cards, and we'll hear those next. All right, seeing as there are none at this time, thank you. We do have comments, as I mentioned, and the first is for, I believe it's Eric Aris. Thank you. And after Eric, it will be Peggy Lee Kennedy, followed by Steve Clare.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Eric Ades. I am with Los Angeles Community Action Network and the Southern California Homeless Bill of Rights Coalition. I'm here to speak on this urgent issue. Two things. No, we're not voting on the motion today, but as is, we are opposed to the motion. We recommend two amendments. The first being that the language in the motion explicitly says that the city will go to the Coastal Commission for a coastal development permit process. I understand that there has been discussions happening. I wish Mr. Bonin was still here because I have an update. I spoke with Andrew Willis, Enforcement Officer of the Coastal Commission this morning. It is his understanding that he conveyed to me that the city will be going to the Coastal Commission for a CDP. Now that is somewhat conflicting with what was actually written and released by the city attorney in late October after this motion was drafted, but before it was voted on, which actually explicitly says that the city does not need to go to the Coastal Commission for a CDP. So there's something that needs to be reconciled here. The city attorneys seems to be their argument that the city does not need to go to the Coastal Commission for a CDP. I have a speaker following me that will speak to that specifically. But according to the Coastal Commission, is their understanding, I know these conversations are informal and confidential, but it was conveyed to me that they are confident that the city is going to be going through a CDP process. And so if that's the case, we just ask that we just put it in writing. And so that the motion includes, hey, there's going to be a review process. We're going to try to come up with a resolution that works for all parties. We feel is our position as a coalition and the Coastal Commission that a CDP is necessary. They think so, and if the city agrees, like it seems the conversations are going, it should just be written explicitly in the motion. The second amendment we would like to see made to the motion is that enforcement stop under the current ordinance. It has been enforced increasingly over the past few years. As far back as 2010, the Coastal Commission has been asking the city to go through the CDP process. While this review is happening, and we feel that the review is actually an admission that something is wrong, the current court ordinance is still being enforced. So we are really appreciative of the conversations that are happening. We're really excited that people are actually trying to address this. But nonetheless, as time goes by every day, individuals are being targeted, specifically homeless individuals, used as an enforcement tool. We don't see it as a public safety tool like the LAPD does. We see it as a tool to target homeless individuals and punish them simply for being homeless. And so we ask that two amendments be changed to motion. Say that the city's going to go through the CDP process, and that enforcement stop under the current until the process is done. That current enforcement stop.
Thank you, Mr. Arts. And there is staff from Mike Bonin's office here, so you'll have that chance to have a conversation with
Oh,
his
great.
office.
Oh, I'm here if you want to talk. Thank you.
All right, Peggy Lee Kennedy.
Peggy Lee Kennedy with the Venice Justice Committee, also with the Southern California Homeless Bill of Rights Coalition. Look, I first submitted a letter of complaint to the California Coastal Commission that the city had created a law that was in violation of state law, the state constitution, and the Coastal Act. In even putting in the original motion that is being amended now, or enforcing it. It's a violation of the state constitution and the Coastal Act. That's state law. And the fact is according to the California Coastal Commission, for there to be a legal action that would require confidential settlement discussions, there would have to be actually a letter, at minimum, a letter of intent issued by the California Coastal Commission to the city for a cease and desist. None of this has happened to my knowledge, according to the Coastal Commission. So I don't know why a coastal development permit is a public issue. This happens publicly. You come before the public to close a beach, and you have to have serious proof. This is a violation. The enforcement is a violation. It's a huge problem. We created a clinic and have a whole team of lawyers volunteering to go to court for homeless people and others that are looked upon poorly and given tickets on the beach at night for a law that is illegal. It violates state law. So the problem with this ordinance is that it's illegal and it should not be enforced. And a regular CDP process, a public process should happen, not behind closed doors and not, we'll amend it later. This is a public process, coastal process. It's state law. Please, we're asking you to step forward and do something. This is right here, a petition of over 1,000 people.
Thank you. And if you have copies, you may submit that petition. Steve Clare, followed by Deborah Lashiver. Good afternoon.
My name's Steve Clare. I'm the Executive Director of Venice Community Housing. We're a nonprofit, local housing and community development organization that tries to provide solutions to a variety of issues for low-income people on the west side of Los Angeles. We're here also to oppose the motion, which is before. I don't want to reiterate what others have said, except to say that we agree that a coastal development permit is required and that this ordinance that has been drafted by the city attorney contains a lot of whereases which purport to justify the city's position that it's not required to have a coastal development permit, but it is in fact not evidence. It is just an assertion. And there needs to be some fact-finding here by the part of the Coastal Commission as required by state law and required by a recent case, the city of Point versus the Coastal Commission, where the Court of Appeal said specifically that the city was charged, the employee was charged with demonstrating that what they were alleging, which was a nuisance, which they had a right to correct, was not a pretext for just violating the law. Now, why is the city doing it in this case? I think other people have already said it is because they're trying to get rid of it or keep a certain class of people, homeless people, away from Venice Beach at night. But what they're actually doing is denying all of us, all the citizens of the city, all the tourists that want to come to Southern California to Venice Beach, all of your constituents, the right to come to Venice Beach at night, to fish, to walk on the sand, to look at the stars, to enjoy the ocean. And there's not been any finding that there is a substantive nuisance issue or public safety issue which would make closing up the beach absolutely and completely closed from 12 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning. So I appreciate it if you would
Thank you, Mr.
not...
Clare. Please stand by for a moment. Have a seat, but I think we're going to have a question for you in a little bit. We're joined by our colleague, Tom Labange. Welcome, Mr. Labange. We have Deborah Lashiver, followed by Sean Gregory.
My name is Deborah Lashiver.
Oh, my apologies.
That's okay. Close enough. I'm from the Venice Justice Committee and the Southern California Homeless Bill of Rights Coalition. People have already said this is against the California State Constitution. Article 10, Section 4 says, access to the navigable waters of this state shall be always attainable for the people thereof. That's pretty clear. It doesn't say, or if it's a nuisance, or if the cops need help. It doesn't give anything like that. It just says those words. And that is what we are supposed to go by, the Constitution. The city claims that the LAPD cannot find the way to police the beach at night without closing the whole beach. This is the third largest police force in the whole country. I think they could figure it out. If there was the will. There's not the will. There's a way, but not the will. My main problem with this is that it is discriminatory. And the city of Los Angeles, this situation exists at all because the city of Los Angeles' own negligence. They refuse to take their responsibilities to resolve homelessness and create situations where people can have basic human services. They're mismanaging funds by using them for criminalization and for taking people's stuff. They're doing these sweeps of $7,500 each month. There's money there. Purposely harassing, ticketing, and confiscating essential personal possessions and therefore harming people they're sworn to serve. Clearly discriminating against one segment of the population. Showing obvious prejudice by consistently introducing more and more laws and ordinances to harass this segment of the population. The bottom line is the city of Los Angeles is so negligent they should be sued for prejudice and malice aforethought for criminally neglecting and harming, many times violently harming, arguably the most vulnerable segment of the population under their care. This ordinance is wrong. It's discriminatory. It's against the Constitution. It should not stand. It needs to have cease and desist. You're harming people right now because it's illegal law.
Thank you. Sean Gregory will be followed by Adam Rice.
Yes, thank you. My name is Sean Gregory. I'm with RAP and LA CAN and the Southern California Homeless Bill of Rights. I oppose this motion as well as the curfew ordinance overall, as it is used only to criminalize homeless individuals. I have been homeless on and off for 5 years now, and I understand how hard it is to be able to afford a place to live, and that difficulty only increases with tickets being issued for these so-called quality of life crimes that are a result of individuals not having a place to stay. Ticketing, we can't ticket and arrest our way out of homelessness. What we need is housing is the ultimate way. And it is cheaper for the city to put us into housing than it is to circulate us through the court system and the jails, which ultimately has no end. It's just going to keep happening. So, while policing in Venice increases, we don't see any increase in the housing. Now, the city and Councilmember Bonin's office might say that there are efforts to increase homeless outreach in the area. However, a recent survey conducted by the Venice Justice Committee shows that this is not true. The current ordinance is almost entirely used to target homeless folks, which must stop. So, do not move this motion forward as it is written, and stop the enforcement of the beach curfew.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Gregory. And Adam Rice will be followed by Becky Dennison.
Good morning, or good afternoon. My name is Adam Rice. I am the executive director of the Los Angeles Anti-Eviction Campaign. And on Mr. Gregory's point that it is cheaper to house people than to leave them on the streets to continually throw police at them. Recently, there was a study done in Orange County, Florida, and it found that it cost the city on average $30,000 a year per homeless person in enforcement and medical costs and all the other things that come from being on the street, where it would only cost $10,000 to assign someone a social worker and house them. Now, this is a formula we can use right here in Los Angeles, because that's what this ordinance is about, and that's what the city's response to being the homeless capital of the world, to a human rights crisis, is throw police at it, inflate the police budget, and take away from the programs that would keep people off of the street. You know, we object to this motion as it's written, and we object to the draft ordinance written by the city attorney. I mean, it's basically extremely concerning and overall based on false logic. You know, you can't ticket your way out of homelessness. You can't criminalize your way out of homelessness because you're just going to create more homelessness. Now, everyone in this committee and everyone in charge of this city are intelligent individuals. So you all know this. So what we're asking you is to put your money where your mouth is. Everyone says we don't want to be the homeless capital of the country. Invest in it. First step is getting rid of these ordinances that criminalize people and make their lives even harder than being on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky Dennison will be followed by Shayla Myers.
Hello, my name is Becky Dennison with the Los Angeles Community Action Network and the Southern California Homeless Bill of Rights Coalition. I just want to submit this letter for the record that summarizes some of the points that you all have heard. Thank you. It's signed by dozens of organizations and a handful of small businesses on the Venice Boardwalk. And as another speaker has mentioned, thousands of individuals have signed petitions in opposition to the curfew. Every single person we talk to, including visitors to the beach, want Venice Beach to be the jewel of the city that it is. And that is a welcoming place, a diverse place, a place for everybody, a place for expression. And unfortunately, as the homeless problem grows in Los Angeles, a place for homeless residents as well. I don't understand why we would need to delay this motion for the city to go through a settlement process with the Coastal Commission. Instead, we should delay this motion and instruct the city attorney to start the coastal development permit process. We are entitled to that as citizens of Los Angeles. We are entitled to access to this beach and all the others. The ordinance doesn't just cover Venice Beach. It covers 11 miles of coastline, 500 acres of recreational land that we have the right to access under state law. And I don't want to live in a city that restricts access to everybody because of trying to penalize a small group of people. We should not be using laws to segregate our public space. And the Coastal Commission and the Coastal Act does not allow for that. And so if you start the coastal development permit process, then you may get some solutions if there are actual legitimate problems. But you can't just close off the entire beach to all of the city of Los Angeles because you refuse to do something about the homeless problem in Los Angeles. So instead of delaying this motion so they can continue discussions, instruct them to start the permit process and stop enforcement until that happens.
Thank you. And Shayla Myers.
Good afternoon. My name is Shayla Myers, and I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, and we represent the Southern California Homeless Bill of Rights Coalition. As our office has previously communicated to the City Attorney's Office, we believe that the existing ordinance, LA Municipal Code 6344B14B, is unenforceable, and that the continued enforcement against our clients is illegal, both under California law and under the Constitution. When the ordinance was passed in 1988, it was done so without a coastal development permit, and it was done so without any consideration of the City of Los Angeles' obligation under the Coastal Act to ensure maximum access to the coastline for the citizens of California. Since that time, the City of Los Angeles has refused to seek a coastal development permit. Over the past 4 years, the Coastal Commission has implored the City of Los Angeles to seek a coastal development permit process, to go through the process, to put the LA Municipal Code through the process that allows the Coastal Commission and the city to consider its obligations under the Coastal Act. And the City of Los Angeles has refused to do that. And during those 4 years, we believe that California courts have made it increasingly clear that an ordinance of this sort constitutes a development under the Coastal Act, and therefore the City of Los Angeles is required to seek a coastal development permit. We believe that is true for Municipal Code 6344 as it stands, and we believe that is true for any consideration of any ordinances going forward. So we would, as we have spelled out to our communications to the City Attorney's Office, we would strongly encourage the city to go through that coastal development permit process, to allow the process to work, to be consistent with state law, and in the meantime to stop enforcing this illegal ordinance against our clients and against the citizens of Los Angeles.
Thank you. And I just want to state for everyone in this room that everyone on this panel and all of our colleagues in City Council, we're taking real steps toward finding a permanent solution to housing our homeless. There's been a major shift over the last couple of years, and I think everyone understands that, and it's not about seeking to manage the homeless issue. It's to house the homeless, and we are taking steps, and I urge you to follow closely some of the action that the City Council is taking. So I just wanted to state that for the record. Having said that,
Chair.
I'd like to invite
Chair.
Steve Clare back up for just a moment. Mr. Cedillo has a question for you, Mr. Clare.
I have
Yes,
for the Finance
Fun.
Committee on the issue of special limits, and I have been called to.
All right, thank you.
So the argument here is just around the process, CDP, right? So that's at the moment. The substantive issue, so if the city complied with CDP and then the Coastal Commission concurred with the position of the city, then would you guys be satisfied? But I'm saying, assuming that the outcome was simply, right, let's say their position is simply a concern on procedure and that we're out of compliance with procedure. They simply want us to come in and comply with, acknowledge their jurisdiction and then simply say, okay, well, now that you acknowledge their jurisdiction, we're fine with your proposal. You wouldn't be fine with the proposal, would you?
No, because if I understand your question is if the Coastal Commission found that the public had no right of access to Venice Beach
From
12
5 to, right?
5, no, I don't think we would be satisfied with that outcome. But I also can't imagine that the Coastal Commission would come to that issue.
They might.
That's why the council is saying that they're in the process of trying to negotiate with the commission right now. They're trying to figure out a way to protect the public's right of access while at the same time addressing whatever nuisance or public safety issues may or may not exist on the beach.
You guys have, is your position simply no on the proposals that Councilmember Bonin is offering, or do you guys have an alternative proposal?
I don't know what
The motion.
other than the motion.
Motion, right.
As I said, there are a lot of whereases there that seem to justify the city's action, but that's not evidence. Those are just somebody writing those things down to justify it. I don't know if you've been out in Venice Beach at night, I do know when I agree with those people who say there needs to be police out on Venice Beach at night. They should be there. That's part of their job. There are 10,000 police in the city of Los Angeles. I can't think of Venice Beach at night. We should have them, and that should permit people in the city of Los Angeles to enjoy Venice Beach at night, as we have a right to under state law.
So your argument is simply, or your request is simply is maintenance of access to the beach.
Yes, and no enforcement of the existing ordinance until.
And I got that. I'm looking for the end game here, where we can get to a functional medium at the end.
I'm encouraged by what Councilman Bond said. They're in negotiations with the Coastal Commission staff right now. It's great. And I hope that they can some sort of proposal that's going to honor the rights of access at the same time to the safety issues. And if that happens, and the city project that goes to the permit and it's approved, we'll all be satisfied.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clare. Thank you for answering the questions. Ms. Espinosa, no additional comment cards on this item? All right, thank you. Colleagues, any questions for Ms. Flores this time? Seeing as there are none, I'd like to continue this item as was explained. That's the direction we're headed. So these negotiations, these discussions can continue without objection. Continue for 30 days. Thank you. So that concludes item 3. We'll now go back to item 2. If Neil, if you could come back up. Mr. Drucker. So It looks like we are good, so we are, thank you, Mr. Drucker. We then will approve without objection the LA Kids Steering Committee recommendations as amended.
Okay, actually, I was just asked to make one more further
Okay,
amendment.
well, it's a good thing.
In the amendment that I read into the record, I had indicated that recommendation number 1 and number 2 shall contain the provision that requires Eagle Union Housing Corporation to establish a bank escrow account. And I was asked to take away the words a bank and just say a escrow account to allow them to use also a formal escrow company similar to a real estate type escrow company as well as a bank type escrow company.
All right, no objections to that amendment. And is that understood for the record? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. So without objection, we will approve as amended twice the committee recommendations from LA Kids Steering Committee. And so that takes us to item 5.
Item number 5 is a motion O'Farrell, Martinez, Parks, Correct, requesting that the city attorney provide a status report on the tobacco retailer's permit ordinance and tobacco enforcement program.
Thank you. So, colleagues, it is really important. We learned a very disturbing statistic in Los Angeles that although in the state of California it was confirmed that 7.6% of all tobacco retailers were observed unlawfully selling to minors in 2013, for the city of Los Angeles the rate was 24%, which prompted my colleagues mentioned to take action on this item. So there are currently 4,768 tobacco retailers in the city. So 24% of those is a pretty high percentage, especially given the widespread scientific knowledge of the dangers of tobacco, especially to our youth. So that is really the impetus of this. So if there are any questions, we have Nora Manzanilla, I understand, from the city attorney's office to answer questions. And it looks as though there are no public comments on this item either. So, colleagues, what I'd like to do is ask for approval of the motion so that we can, the city attorney's office can begin preparing that report to report back to this committee. So we are in business on that as well, and that completes the agenda for today. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.